Ever wondered how 10 ruthless child molesters react when they hear the words life sentence?
This case shows innocence, not guilty.
Join us as we delve into their world, witnessing a roller coaster of emotions, confronting the consequences of their actions, and emphasizing the crucial need to protect the vulnerable.
Left for you to hide, Larry.
Acceptable to violate a 16-year-old girl.
Brace yourself for this gripping journey, but be warned, it's not for the faint-hearted. Francisco de Aragon. In Broward County, Florida, Francisco de Aragon, a former South Florida swim instructor, faced a harrowing trial. He stood accused of molesting 3 6-year-old girls, a deeply disturbing set of charges that shocked the community. Throughout the trial, de Aragon vehemently denied any wrongdoing, maintaining his innocence.
This case shows innocence, not guilty. Not that I'm some monster.
He suggested that any contact may have been accidental and misinterpreted. However, the young victim's testimonies left little room for doubt about the nature of his actions. Christopher Branham. Our next destination leads us to the Bexar County Courthouse, where a deeply unsettling incident unfolded. Here, a 23-year-old named Christopher Branham faced serious charges for his actions in a San Antonio movie theater restroom. The accusations against Branham were grave. He was charged with sexually exposing himself and assaulting a young boy. During the proceedings, the prosecutor didn't mince words, condemning Branham as a sexual predator. They pointed out his poor impulse control and the fact that he used substances, painting a disturbing picture of the accused.
He's just a sexual predator, Your Honor. He has poor impulse control. He uses drugs, he uses alcohol.
This case serves as a stark reminder of the complex emotions and contrasting narratives that can emerge within the walls of a courtroom. Terry McFadden. In the solemn setting of the Franklin County Courthouse, Terry McFadden found himself facing charges of sexually abusing 2 children at a daycare run by his wife. As the judge delivered a scathing rebuke of his actions, McFadden displayed a hint of regret, a faint acknowledgement of the gravity of his crimes. While the remorse he showed was far from sufficient to undo the harm he had caused, it marked a departure from the unrepentant demeanor seen in some other cases.
You can't even know what damages you've done for sexual gratification. This, to me, is so mind-boggling that you used and abused 2 little children like they're inconsequential.
Christopher Elwell. In a courtroom at the Stratford Superior Courthouse, 29-year-old Christopher Elwell stood facing the weight of his actions. He was there to receive his sentence for the gravest of crimes, aggravated felonious sexual assault against a defenseless 4-year-old girl. The charges hung heavily in the air, a dark cloud over the proceedings. Elwell's initial response was one of denial, vehemently refuting the accusations that had brought him to this point.
Required to register as a sex offender and had been living at 12 Mineral Park Drive off and on, but more than 5 times a month.
This denial only added to the distress experienced by the young victim and her anguished family. However, as the legal process advanced, a transformation occurred within Elwell. He eventually confessed to his guilt, belatedly acknowledging the profound wrong he had committed. The sentencing that followed sought to address the profound harm inflicted by Elwell's actions. Beyond the charges related to the assault, Elwell faced additional consequences for his failure to register as a sex offender, compounding his legal troubles. Larry Nassar. Let's take a journey to Charlotte, Michigan, where a chilling courtroom drama unfolded. Larry Nassar, a man accused of sexually assaulting a staggering 265 young women and girls, all under the pretense of medical treatment, found himself facing sentencing at the Eaton County Courthouse. In the midst of this tense atmosphere, a father named Randall Margraves, who had seen 3 of his daughters victimized by Nassar, reached a breaking point. Overwhelmed by years of suppressed anger, he could no longer contain his emotions. In a shocking and dramatic courtroom moment, he lunged at the defendant, a powerful expression of the pain and anger felt by countless families affected by Nassar's actions.
As part of this sentencing, to grant me 5 minutes in a locked room with this demon.
As the dust settled, the judge delivered a resounding sentence. Larry Nassar would spend 40 to 175 years behind bars. This courtroom outburst not only captivated our attention, but also underscored the profound impact of Nassar's crimes on the lives of his victims and their families. It John Acklin. Within the Columbia County Court, a chilling and emotionless figure, 56-year-old John Acklin, stood accused of 16 counts of sexually assaulting 2 children. Throughout the trial and sentencing, Acklin maintained an emotionless facade, receiving a 335-year prison sentence.
That you never see the light of day again. I hope that you're never going to be around any children.
Michael Peach. In Trumbull County, Ohio, a courtroom played host to the arraignment of Michael Peach, a man convicted on 18 charges, including gross sexual imposition, kidnapping, and felonious assault. As he stood before the judge, Peach expressed remorse for his actions, acknowledging the gravity of his crimes.
You know that I alone, no matter what sentence I get, I'm going to have to live with for the rest of my life anyway.
Edwin Rim. In DeLand, Florida, the courtroom became the stage for a profoundly disturbing case as 19-year-old Edwin Rim faced charges of raping a 9-month-old baby, an act that resulted in the need for reconstructive surgery for the young victim. Rim claimed that he heard voices compelling him to commit this unthinkable crime.
And I heard a voice in my head telling me to do something to her.
In response to these heinous actions, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole and declared a sexual predator. The chilling aspect of this case was not only the horrifying crime itself, but also Rim's lack of apparent remorse or understanding of the gravity of his actions. His defense of hearing voices did little to mitigate the horror of the crime, and the courtroom was left with an unsettling sense of the darkness that had led to such a tragic incident. The sentence handed down reinforced society's commitment to protect the vulnerable and hold individuals accountable for their crimes, even when faced with disturbing cases like this one. Lewis Matthews. In a chilling and deeply unsettling case that shook the community of Tampa, Florida, Lewis Matthews, a resident of the city, faced accusations of committing sexual battery against a victim who was shockingly younger than 12 years old. What made this case even more disturbing was the involvement of a tragic incident connected to bleach, underscoring the heinous nature of the crime. Throughout the courtroom proceedings, it became painfully evident that Matthews exhibited an alarming lack of remorse for his actions, despite the gravity of the charges against him.
No, man, I thank you for your time and everything.
The sentencing which followed reflected the severity of his crimes. Lewis Matthews was sentenced to life imprisonment with an additional 55 years behind bars. This sentence served as a solemn reminder of the irreversible harm inflicted upon an innocent victim and the profound consequences that awaited Matthews as he grappled with the stark reality of his actions. Ronnie Salazar. In a Miami courtroom, Ronnie Salazar, who had previously been sentenced to life imprisonment for the murder of his sister, appeared with hopes of receiving a reduced sentence due to recent legal changes. The judge, taking into account Salazar's troubled past, poverty, and parental neglect, delivered a verdict that surprised many. Salazar was sentenced to 40 years in prison, with a review scheduled after 25 years. This decision made Salazar break down in tears,
tell me the reason why they left me.
Perhaps a sign of his remorse and realization of the consequences of his actions. These cases offer a glimpse into the varying reactions and emotions surrounding ruthless child molesters as they face the consequences of their abhorrent actions within the American justice system.